So glad you've been able to join us. And before this conference, I was talking online with Tetyana, and it was just, I really feel that I became a friend even in those couple of conversations, and I was so happy to see Tetyana here. So we're going to have what's a keynote interview rather than a keynote speech. And in the last few weeks, we know that the Russian attacks on Ukraine's cities have started to target again and again. Critical infrastructure has been badly affected. So planning to get here has not been straightforward. But first of all, take us to a time when the work you'd been doing earlier this year, before February.
Well, in like my previous life, so to say, I joined language industry in the first years of Ukrainian independence, so it was long ago. But when I started business when I was 25 years. 25. I started business 25 years ago, when I still have like 1 year to finish my university studies, and was the mother of 3 kids. And probably since then, I always was guided by the words and believed that I can do more. So at a certain period, I decided that we'll need to start providing Ukrainian localization, and it's really very important. And then I decided that I can do more and joined academia and took all this way from lecturing my courses invented by me in language technologies to being an expert in national accreditation body. Then I decided that I can do more with organizing a lot of industry events. And of course, when the war has started, I also thought that like with my experience, I can do more, and joined Clear Global and Translators Without Borders as the country program manager to have a bigger impact.
Right, and of course on February the 24th, everything changed. Can you describe what happened in those first few days?
Of course, these days are really even difficult to keep in mind, because, of course, there were all these talks about war. So we were preparing, even like packing like suitcases with necessary things, but nobody can imagine that one day we'll just wake up from explosions. So I'm based in Lviv, so in Lviv I woke up from the words of my husband that the war has started and Kyiv was bombed and Kharkiv was bombed. And it was like waking up, like being in the movie, in this like wartime movie, but this time you're a main character, not probably main, like in your life you are a main character. So, and I had this feeling for many months.
So you said also on February the 24th, you learnt the rule of 2 walls. What do you mean by that?
It's the rule that everyone learned during the first days. So it means that if there is shelling and you don't have the possibility to hide in a proper shelter, you need to find the place behind the 2 walls. So it means that if the first wall will be ruined, so you are protected by the second wall from fragments of bricks and glass and things like that. So your chances to survive are really much higher. And when I just mentioned this rule of 2 walls, I think that like in our lives, it was like everything that we had facing this external world, like your family, your house, your job, your friends, your little hobbies, they are ruined to this or that extent. And you need to find something that protects you. Because like in my life, really everything changed. Since the first days, my husband joined the army. My daughter left to another country. I closed the Ukrainian part of my business because like there was nobody in the office, you know, people were leaving. Of course, daily habits also changed. But like from this chaos that we had during the first days, I want to mention that, of course, it was like absolutely chaotic. Like offices were closed, people were leaving country, roads were jammed, and I would like to mention that language industry actually showed really like huge resilience because interpreters started to organize themselves into like self-formed units, say, and started interpreting. They started translators started translating, and for me personally, I admire them so much. Because like my intellectual maximum was like cooking food and making beds for people who were like staying at our house on their way abroad. So really, language industry showed all that great skills.
Well, I mean, just for those first couple of weeks, you were playing a very important role, helping people flee the country and by letting them stay in your house, cooking them meals, etc. But then you yourself started to work again, and you say you reached a new normal.
Yes, it's really a very interesting point for not only for me, I can see it in many other organizations. That now you have this, you have to forget everything that you knew before, how to live, how to run business, or things like that, because now you cannot make long-term plans, like nothing. You need to address these immediate issues, for example, like how to work during air alerts, or how to address now this issue of blackouts. It's really huge, for example, for Kiev. You need to understand how to keep clients, how to prove them that you can deliver in time whatever happens, and like in reality you cannot guarantee this, yes, because like it's impossible. And but most clients, international clients, were really very supportive in this, and even like provided financial support for our translators who had to leave the country. Others actually mentioned that they have to like suspend our cooperation because, like with, for example, Russia or Belarus, because you know, like circumstances in Ukraine are not supportive for cooperation.
Well, obviously that was quite difficult for you, but I'm just interested to know, how did you meet deadlines?
Oh. It was hard with some companies. We just agreed on extensions, but I was like, in my case, it was. I don't know, like whether we can put this way, that like lucky enough that a lot of our translators, they left Ukraine and worked from Poland, so that was the best approach. When you stay in Ukraine, of course, it's hard to guarantee anything.
Exactly. And what about the wider impact on the translation industry? And you've actually prepared some slides because you've got quite a few points to make. So I'll just hand over to you to go through those.
We have a slide. Yes, it's mostly I really prepared slides because there are so many different initiatives. It's not even about impact of this situation on the global industry. I wanted to mention initiatives that were aimed at helping Ukrainians and people in translation industry, in language community. because it's really very, well, it's very moving and great that translators from other countries did so many things to support translators in Ukraine. I want to mention, for example, one initiative, Translators for Ukraine, based in Poland and made by Polish Association of Translators and some other organizations that created a list of interpreters or people who want to help with interpreting, available online, free for people who cross the border. They also had an initiative with the Ukrainian Association of Translators with matching programs. So it's when Ukrainian translators left the country, they had place to stay with other translators and they got help. There was also help and the program from International Federation of Translators that provided financing to people, to translators actually who evacuated and provided them with money and medicine. UK-Ukraine Language Task Force also helped people in UK significantly and had some programs for translators. And the person whom I follow, I don't know him personally, like it's Oscar Kuros, the owner of Spanish language company, who ran probably, and he's not stopping, like more than 40 protests against the war in Ukraine all over Europe. And he's spreading information about this war. And of course, when I joined Clear Global, we had this great possibility to make a real change. And because of the structure and the essence of the company. And during this response, we've translated more than 3 million words by more than 1,700 linguists, and these are volunteers and professionals with different humanitarian organizations, because we mostly translate for humanitarian organizations. And understanding that it is really very, very important for people who are fleeing the country to get information in the language they understand. We are developing now the artificial intelligence tool called Yasno, like it means clear in Ukrainian, where people can get information in the language they know. Of course, we also do a lot of research to understand how languages are moved now with people, because people are moving all over the country, so where we can help with the changing language situation. And training for translators to help in humanitarian interpreting, to help people who are not professional interpreters, like provide the assistance language, efficient language assistance.
Yes, I mean, you actually relied hugely on volunteers, didn't you? I think that's something that really stands out.
Yes, but here we need to understand that it's not... here we have this combination of professional translators and non-professional translators, really very unique because of the number of people who wanted to help. And for example, for professional translators or interpreters, we had really unique experience when people, interpreters, simultaneous interpreters interpreted round the clock, 67 interpreters interpreted TV marathon it's our news that we had going on, and they were interpreted into Russian and into English by that huge crowd of. It sounds like a lot of interpreters, but for such a number of hours, more than 3,000 hours of simultaneous interpreting, it was very impressive. And we also had a great initiative created by 2 language companies that was like a crowdsourced platform where organizations or people who needed just put information, and translators self-organized, so to say. So they just had these project managers and quality assurance and things like that, organized by themselves. And just one example to show their influence, the organization Center for Civil Liberties that won Nobel Peace Prize this year actually expressed their huge gratitude and appreciation of the role that translation delivered by this resource, by this initiative, played in this prize.
That's an amazing achievement, really. What kind of things did they have to translate?
There are a lot of different subject matters. Say it's military, it's medical, it's psychological. It's a lot of different things in different formats, and of course. This created really unique challenges we never faced before. For example, when you need to understand how to deal with absolutely new subject matter, because you understand that at the beginning of war, nobody was a great specialist in these names of weapons and, like in nothing, and you had to learn this in no time, on the go. And responsibility is huge. Absolutely different work conditions, because sometimes translators or interpreters, they translate from shelters. If we'll just read now these translators groups in Facebook, there are now very interesting things discussed. For example, people are sharing the tips and techniques how not to cry during interpreting, because, of course, it's not professional to cry, but we are humans, of course. And so people, how to deal with emotions. What is the best type of the respirator to interpret during, for international experts during body exhumation. What to do, how to keep energy for translating, and whether you can do a lot of interpreting from the car. So some things that you never ever studied at universities, and you have to deal with this and find a solution.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting you saying that, because as a journalist, you sometimes have to deal with difficult things, but you're just there, you're passing through it, and you're professional, you're doing your job, but you are doing your job, but you're actually also living through it and experiencing those difficulties yourself. I was just interested, you say how not to cry. I mean, is there a technique as such?
Yes, I never tried because I'm not interpreting, but I read a lot of, I read all the comments, and the most efficient people proved that was given by our interpreter Andriy Besedin, who said that you just cry. You just don't try not to cry, but breathe from your stomach. And this way your voice won't tremble, and so you can just continue interpreting even when crying. I mean, where can you read this type of advice? In what manual on interpreting university course book?
It's quite surreal, isn't it? Yes. So much to take in there, huge responsibility, and all the time you must be aware that information is key and correct information. So I suppose this is a bit of a difficult question to answer, but how reliable or indeed trustworthy are those translations?
Oh, well, it's really, yes, it's not an easy question, but of course, to that point, like the most important information is translated or interpreted by professional translators and interpreters. But the amount of information, it's huge. Like it's impossible to find professional translators for that. And of course there are a lot of people who want to help. So a lot of volunteers or amateurs, so just bilingual people joined this. So here every time we need to think like whether it is, so what is more important? Like no translation at all, or translation with some mistakes, but it depends, of course. It creates a new challenge, but I think it's rather good that volunteers join at this point the profession.
And you mentioned in your slides, you talked about AI, a new AI tool being developed. I just wondered what role technology has played in all of this.
I think we could not like handle without technologies. Probably it will sound strange now, but like pandemic helped us a lot with mastering the skills of work with remote interpreting systems, and now everything is well, not everything, but a lot of things is interpreted online, and again, having a lot of interpreters abroad, we can also guarantee the workflow. And of course, computer-assisted translation, machine translation, they allow you to deliver these huge masses of information in a shorter time and with better quality. Yes, and here speaking about quality, technologies, they help. But like Commissioner Hunt said, it's really, we need to remember that behind every technology, these are people, and people are really the most important factor, the most, so to say, important mechanism in the technology.
Yes, thank you. I think we're going to have time for some questions, so we can take questions in the room. Of course, online, please put them in Slido, and I'll try and read them out. So, if you've got a question, ask in a minute. I've just got one more question I want to get in before I open it up to the floor. So what do you think has been the biggest challenge, and what coping strategies have you had to develop?
Probably it's a good question trying to identify the biggest challenge, but probably I'll return to this like first wall that this image, the changing of your the way you lived, changing of your priorities, changing to things you need to adjust now, like, for example, like keeping in mind that there could be like shortage of food, shortage of water or something like this. So when you forgot that these problems, you never thought that these problems will appear in your life. Also this thing of working, for example, how to arrange your work between air alarms or between these blackouts, or between even again, text messages from my husband, because it influences it. It things you think that it is you can like overcome this, but for example, not getting text message in the morning from front lines, it makes your day really hard. And speaking about coping strategies, I also just collected them, so to say, to have recipes, and probably one of the best working, at least for me, and I see that it works for many people. This strategy of like living your life and enjoying like small joys of life. And you won't believe, Anya, but after the first weeks in Lviv, the most required person specialist was the manicure specialist, because it gave you like a quick return to the normal life. And so like not putting your life on some pause and living your regular life, it helps. Active participation also helps a lot. All language industry helps, really is taking an active part in doing a lot of pro bono translations. But even during the recent this massive attacks in October that we had, this charity foundation shared that they have like a huge number of donations during this time. So people sitting in the whole day in the shelters, they were like donating money during this time, and it impresses me a lot. And work helps. Yes, work helps because I think that our profession allows us to really do important things. And actually, I think it forms this second wall that keeps you safe. Well, yes, but that helps you to move forward.
The sort of the protection of
yes,
the wall.
your protection,
Yes.
protection.
There's lots of questions coming in here online, so I'll take some of them, and then if you want to ask in the room, put your hand up. So there's one here that's had a lot of votes. So how can we as professionals and individuals away from the war zone help Ukrainian translators and students? What about housing or co-working? What can other people do?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of ways to help Ukraine. First thing, and I really am so happy to see this, that like nobody, it was one of the largest fears that the world will forget about Ukraine in no time. Yes, as soon as they'll get tired from all that horrible news. So yes, the first thing is like not to forget about Ukraine, and we are all online. We are open to many projects. Probably I don't know about housings. Probably for most people at the moment this question is solved, but we don't know now. Winter is coming, and many regions are not like a place to live absolutely. So probably there will be a new wave. And we can, I think, like, you can contact me, you can contact, I see here Natalia Pavlyuk, the president of Ukrainian Translators Association, and yes, she'll be really only happy to just to help with ideas.
That's great. Yes. And then just talking about the winter ahead, just a couple of very practical questions. How do you plan ahead? And what do you do in a blackout, especially when you're using technology?
Oh, now, again, this translation groups in Facebook, like a fascinating source of information, because there you can find like tips on how to manage. Of course, like in Lviv, where I live, the situation is more or less stable with, well, we have like 4 hours of blackouts a day. It's okay, but in Kiev it's really an issue. So translators, yes, they invested heavily. That was really for them. It was a huge investment for these power generators, and they are like as I said, translating from cars, charging the computer, and so there are many tricks. People are so inventive, you know, when you need to survive. In this case, you'll survive.
So resourceful. Are there any questions in the room at all? Put your hand up if you would like to ask a question at all in the room. Or are you putting them all online with the rest of our online audience? There's a question here. I'm just keeping a lookout if I see any hands go up. Here's one here. I'm quite curious how the war has changed the prevailing languages you get the assignments for. Can you see more Ukrainian, less Russian assignments?
Yes. So Ukrainian language, of course, it is very there is huge demand for Ukrainian, and I think that many people who are in language industry, they know that the demand is really very significant, and luckily, due to the demand, a lot of people who were like Russian speaking in Ukraine, they're switching to Ukrainian, not only because of demand, of course, but they're switching. And but we also started to get Russian projects as well, because companies cannot cooperate with Russia, yes, and it helps many companies and translators to survive.
And there are two sort of similar questions. One is about how do you cope with the stress, and another one about were there any well-being programs developed to help translators?
I really do think that we have to start thinking about this, because it's a huge issue. It's not easy, all this secondary trauma, and that we are now just trying to hide inside. It will show itself. So, for example, we recently had volunteers who work with displaced people in Clear Global. And we invited a person who is like more psychologist than language specialist, because we see that this is an issue. Yes, no, there is no such programs at the moment, but I think it's really good to start thinking about this.
Okay, and I'll take one more question from here before my final question to you. So, can you recommend information resources available for volunteer interpreters?
For volunteer interpreters?
Yes. What would you? Where would a volunteer interpreter start? Are there resources out there to help them, or do they just have to learn by their job?
No, I'm sure that there are resources. The website of Clear Global has a lot of free resources that you can use to develop your skills, and probably you can go from there. And websites of various associations are also a great resource to master your skills, to start mastering your skills.
Thank you. So, so that is interesting, and I've just got one more question for you. At the beginning, well, actually, throughout your talk, you've been talking about a second wall, not just a physical wall, but something metaphorical as the language community, and you've got some pictures you wanted to show us to illustrate that.
Yes, I just before the picture, I wanted to say that being at this, being in language community, being a part of language community, really helps you, because it shows that you are not alone. This belonging, this feeling of belonging is really very strong. And we also have skills that allow us to help people immediately. And we also have skills of self-organization, and it's really very important. So it forms, I think it's a huge part of that second wall. And I want to show you the picture of the probably the most symbolic second wall that we have. It's the wall of the building destroyed by Russian missiles in Borodyanka. It's Kiev region. And we see that, we see that there is like no external wall, but there is a kitchen cabinet, there are plates intact, there is even this ceramic rooster, and this wall is, yes, and this dusty, they are like not very good looking now, but now there's that symbol of Ukrainian resilience. And we also can see that this wall, it doesn't remain untacted. So it suffered, yes. It has its signs, and probably for many, well, it would be much easier to speak about all this if I was like speaking about past experience, yes. But now we are in the process, yes. We are living through it. We are just experiencing this. And what I actually thought that this being a part of probably this lesson learned, that being a part of the language industry really helps you to survive, helps you to get help, to help others, and it is something that actually, yes, help us all to hold on and move on and feel ourselves like a community united by profession. Yes.
Thank you very much, Tetyana. Just before we finish, can you go to your mobile devices or your computers? We're just going to take a word cloud and just get your reaction. Be nice to know in one word what you make of Tetyana's speech. So if you go to that, and I've just got a very basic question for you while you're talking about walls. What was your physical second wall? Where do you go?
We are lucky to live in a large house. That's why everyone stayed with us on their way abroad. So we have a basement, and we're really lucky just to move from our beds at night to beds in basement. Though like, many people have to really put their clothes on and leave the house. Yes,
we really hope you stay safe, and the words are coming in here, and the main one is inspiring and resilience, touching, and I've seen someone that's written hero there, and you really are a hero, and strength and empowerment, thought-provoking. So thank you so much, Tetyana. Big round of applause for Tetyana.
Thank you.